Welcome to Let Go, Let EFT, where we are learning and leaning in with you, with your hosts Michelle Puster and Dr. Laura Spiller. EFT is a beautiful model helping people connect with themselves and the people that matter the most, developed by Dr. Sue Johnson. On our next sex therapy and EFT topic, which is the dual control model. And for me, it was popularized by Dr. Emily Nagasaki in her book, Come As You Are. So let's just get into what is the dual control model and what does it have to do with couples therapy and EFT?
Yeah. Take us away on that.
So I'm going to just give the very basic definition. Basically, the dual control model is your brain is made up of a partnership of sexual excitation or accelerator and a sexual inhibition, like sexual breaks. So things that excite you and turn you on and are like yes signals to being sexual, and things that hit your brakes, no signals to being sexual content, all those kind of things. And generally, we just kind of think about and hear about accelerators when it comes to being sexual, like lingerie and erotica and toys and all these kind of things that are supposed to and can hit people's accelerator. But we don't often talk about brakes. What hits our brakes? Maybe we don't even know we have brakes. So let's get into it about what does this have to do with couples therapy and EFT? Where do you see the dual control model, our knowledge of having accelerator and brakes, like helping us when it comes to couples?
Well, even as you were just describing it, I was thinking like how non-pathologizing it is and how normalizing it is. It's such a good frame for helping people find ways to tweak things that are not working and kind of have more success being sexually intimate. So yeah, even just the framework, right? I'm not broken. There's something that it's not that something's wrong with me, that we have differences in how sensitive our accelerators are. We have differences in how sensitive our brakes are. And that changes over the course of the relationship. I mean, the number of brakes and accelerators, right? I just think about new parents. Suddenly there's a lot more brakes on than there was in the past. And once you recognize that, then you have this new ability to work with the context. The context matters. That that's a place where you're not trying to fix yourself, but you can look at the context and be able to try to create, increase the access to accelerators and decrease the number of brakes. But what about for you? Kind of how has this impacted your couples therapy work, or how do you use it?
Well, just as you were saying that, I was thinking maybe we should give examples I gave some examples of accelerators, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any sexual stimuli that maybe to someone it's not sexual stimuli, to another person it is sexual stimuli that is like moving towards, ooh, yes, that's interesting. I want more. I'm kind of like, ooh, gives you that feeling. Or the breaks could be stress. It could be your kids are in the next room. It could be you have a big project at work the next day. It could be, let's see, it could be being, maybe you don't like PDA, maybe you don't even like want to be, give affection in front of other people. It could be,
for relative to a lot of our EFT work, right? When there's not emotional safety.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Emotional disconnection can be a break.
Yes, a big fight.
Exhaustion. Yeah, big fight,
Yes, and you said exhaustion. I want to make sure that didn't get covered over. Exhaustion is huge. And as you're saying that all those things, when people don't know about the breaks, oftentimes they're judging themselves and their partner is judging them because why aren't you interested in sex? Why don't you want to be sexual with me? Or they're asking themselves, why am I not interested in sex? Why don't I want to be sexual with my partner? And something else you made me think of is how it changes over the lifespan. A lot of times couples when they're first dating, sex can be easy and fun, not always, but oftentimes it can be easy and fun. They don't think a lot about who's initiating, what's happening, just it's just like fun and happens often and everybody's happy.
Mm-hmm.
Then life changes in all different kinds of ways. Careers, kids, stressors of all different kinds. And then, as you were saying, those breaks might come up a little bit more, and they don't necessarily realize that what's happening and why. And I've even had lots of people say, I really felt duped. I felt like, this is what I was kind of promised, and this is what I got, as someone who's maybe their accelerators are a little bit more sensitive, their brakes aren't so sensitive, so they're not impacted the same way by stress, exhaustion, all those things. And something else that's important to note is something that hits one person's brakes might hit the other person's accelerator, right? Like one person might feel overwhelmed with stress, work, da 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 da. They're like, oh gosh, I
Yeah,
can't wait
it's
to
a
have
break.
sex. I can't wait to have sex because
You're
such a
talking about the
stress
accelerator.
reliever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And then the other person's like, stress. What is sex? I don't like sex. I don't want to be sexual. I can't, my body won't, is like, just not feeling it, kind of feel numb. Right. And
Yeah.
then not knowing that, they're both looking at each other like, why are you wanting sex when XYZ is happening in our life? Or why aren't you wanting to be sexual with me? I'm stressed. I feel lonely and disconnected. Ooh, that's another one that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
That can hit one person's accelerator. I feel lonely and
Yeah.
disconnected. I want to be sexual with you because I want to come close. And the other person, it's the exact opposite. I
Mm-hmm.
feel lonely and disconnected. I can't even think about being sexual with you. I want to somehow emotionally connect with you. So
Mm-hmm.
you can start to see how this has a huge impact on couples, especially the not knowing anything about
Mm-hmm.
the accelerator and brake system.
Mm-hmm. The
What are
dual
you, what's
control.
coming up for you?
Well, I was just thinking like how we're set up for this, that stress is an activator of our attachment system,
Mm,
right? So in under situations of stress, it's going to activate that part of the, that desire for safety in the relationship. And for some, right, it's the like where sex is a way I know I can get that message that I'm special to you. It's a relationship you don't have with anybody else. You're the one person I can connect with this way, in a committed relationship, monogamous relationship. There might be some, and so there is this, for some, the attachment system says, oh, this is the way that you feel safe and bonded and you belong. And for others, stress is saying, yeah, I want to feel bonded and belong with you, but I want to do it through the emotional connection. I want to know it's okay that I'm, kind of collapsed under the stress right now, that you're going to take something off my plate and give me care and comfort, and that it's it's a different channel for that care and comfort. And
mhm,
the sexuality is really not part of their makeup.
mhm.
It's a brake and not an accelerator. So I love that you point that out. I mean, there's the stress impact and the attachment styles and needs can be so different in whether it is a brake or an accelerator. Uh,
Right.
and I think when we were talking about this, prepping for this discussion, you said, there's this lens that people can have of their own experience.
Mhm.
So how do you see that kind of impacting things here too? Um,
Yeah, I guess it's that we don't really realize that the other person's, it's like night and day different. I mean, some people obviously realize this, maybe intuitively or what have you, or they are able to talk about it. So there's a little bit more openness.
that's a good point. Able to talk about it.
Right. And other times it's like you're I don't get where you're coming from. It's like you're speaking a foreign language. It just does not make any sense. I'm seeing it through my eyes. Why aren't you coming towards me? I want to be sexual with you. I'm stressed. I miss you. I'm lonely. What is the problem? And vice versa. What's the problem? Why are you only wanting to be sexual with me? I feel like an object. I feel like all you want me for is sex. And you're coming towards me when all this difficult, stressful stuff is happening in our life to be sexual. Like, what's wrong with you? So you can see how a cycle starts to come up.
Yeah.
And without that knowledge and being able to communicate and talk about it, judgment comes up, and they start to not only, judge each other, they're judging themselves, and they keep kind of like, yeah, coming towards each other in sort of like harsh and critical and judgmental ways, and feeling misunderstood and hurt. So a huge cycle can come from this, and lots of kind of different cycles. And oftentimes when a couple comes to us, they might have been entrenched in this cycle for years.
And then
And
there's wounds on
I'm
top of it.
sorry.
And then there's wounds, that kind of
Right.
accumulate.
And something else that we usually talk about is the self of the therapist. And as therapists, if we don't know about the dual control model, we might just, it might be one of those situations where we feel more aligned with the person who we are most similar to, because we're like, yeah, what is your problem that you don't want to be sexual? Like, there's all this stress, and can't you see how lonely that person feels? Why don't you want to be sexual with them? Or vice versa. Maybe we're on the other side where we're like, why are you pursuing for sex? There's all this stress, there's a new baby, there's job loss, there's this, there's that. Like, so if we don't know about this, we might come from our own framework, not having any other kind of
Yeah.
framework to move from, and we might have our own judgments start to come online, which of course will sort of alienate the other person. And even if we try not to, we might unintentionally, they might feel judged and things like that. So our own, if this can just help our knowledge and our background and help us have more empathy, it can help us move towards each person with validation, curiosity. Help me understand your experience. I may not have had that experience personally, but just like with anything that happens in our clients' lives, we try to put ourselves in their shoes. We try to understand where they're coming from. Is there anything else that comes up for you when you think of like where we get stuck as therapists around this topic?
I think it's sometimes not having a roadmap, or, kind of feeling like, oh, wow, this is a big difference. They're wired so differently. How do I help them with that? And we can feel a little overwhelmed and stuck. Especially when people are entrenched and they're really good at making the case for the way that their nervous system responds and the way that they've coped with it. You can feel, that feeling of it being entrenched and it feeling physiological, in my recall of the dual control model, that there is some, you're kind of wired with how sensitive your accelerators and brakes are. I'm sure that there's a range of some sort in there, but what I have found really helpful and is the piece about the context in the situation that this provides for our therapist roadmap. I mean, we have this framework now for helping them talk about what are the accelerators in their life, what are the brakes in their life, how has that changed over time. That and then that can point in directions of contextual things that they may have a little bit more control over, or maybe right now in this phase of life they don't have a lot of control over it, but that's at least acknowledgement that they're looking at it the same way, and so that
Right.
can help. And then I was also thinking about how this is just so much opportunity to see their cycle at work.
Yeah, that's what I
Why
was.
are they not able to talk about this? What's getting in the
Right.
way of them being a team trying to figure out like how to take the brakes off and, create more accelerators? Um, rather than teaming up, they've gotten polarized. And so this is yet another place where you can come in at the process level.
Right.
And what's
Yes.
happening as you're talking about it and as they're trying to talk about it.
Yes, I love that because I think like with many topics, in EFT we talk about don't get caught in the weeds, don't get caught in the content. And the learning something new about a sexual, their sexual relationship might at first pull us into the weeds, and we might be like, oh my gosh, this person's way over here and this person's way over here. How are they possibly going to meet in the middle? And when we zoom out and we say, okay, this really isn't that much different than, I don't know, parenting things, or one person's an extrovert, one person's an introvert, or one person's a withdrawer, or one person's a pursuer, right? The basic foundations of EFT, we can kind of like take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to know, are they going to be able to meet in the middle? What's that going to look like? All we have to do is move towards them with curiosity,
Yeah.
help them understand, help their partner understand their experience, where
Mhm.
they feel stuck, validate, like you said about the attachment system, bring that online and um, heighten that system. Oh, you really want closeness with your partner. When you can't find that closeness, you feel disconnected, you feel far apart. And now you're just talking about in the context of their sexual relationship. When you don't have that emotional connection, it makes so much sense. You don't want to be sexual, or you don't feel close enough to be sexual, and vice versa. When you feel disconnected, you so much want that closeness, and that's your path towards closeness, is being sexual. So it's validating, normalizing, being curious, all those awesome EFT skills that we have. Now we're just using them about the specific topic of their sexual relationship and the accelerator and brake.
Yes. I kind of want to even like just highlight that and underscore that there are moments where for us as therapists where it can feel like there's this big gulf between them, but we do work with that in so many different areas, and then a lot of times that's our job, to help them appreciate their differences and figure out how to meet in the middle and how their differences help them kind of almost be a stronger team, and we can do that in this context too. Um,
Right.
Especially if we've
Yeah.
got a framework that normalizes it,
Hmm.
understand it, all
Yeah,
that.
I love that reframe. It's kind of like, yeah, you help balance each other out. And then they might, when they first learn about this, if there's been a lot of hurt feelings, an entrenched cycle, they might be like, oh, fearful. Oh my gosh, does this mean like we're never going to be compatible in this area? And I love the way you put that. It's such a nice reframe of,
Mhm.
wow, look how you all complement each other. And I can, and we can remind them, if they did have sort of an easier access to their sexual relationship, and it was maybe even a strength early in their relationship, then we can remind them, you guys were not different people then,
Yeah.
and you probably had a similar accelerator and similar break then, and it was okay, and you guys worked together, and that you balanced each other out. And so that's a really nice reframe. So when we think about strategies, we kind of already mentioned the main one, which is um, helping pull out the cycle. First us kind of figuring out, where do they get caught in a cycle around this? Where can we, present that to them, and kind of using that classic EFT, this is where it looks like the cycle is winning. And how can we, like you mentioned, how can we work towards being a team and coming together and improving communication around this, so that you feel like, yeah, we can do this and we can do this together. Um, also, what's another strategy that we might use when it comes to the dual control model?
Well, I think that we've maybe mentioned it even before, and I know we're going to repeat this over and over, but like we really love the Emily Nagasaki books. I mean, I think you have on your desk, you have Come As You Are, and I have on my desk the newest one, Come Together. Yeah, there you go. But they are just, I would assign that there's chapters in both on the dual control system. And she's got workbooks I often use, and I think I know I've downloaded them from the internet. So I think that there are the dual control system worksheets, and they're available on the internet. And they are really great ways to kind of get, if your couple can do it, to give them an opportunity to start having that discussion and see how the cycle comes up. So the
Mhm.
exercise is useful, whether the
Mhm.
cycle comes up or not. It's one thing I
Mhm.
always tell them. We're learning from this no matter how it goes. If it goes
Right.
right, I want to hear that. I want to hear what how that conversation went and what you learned. If it does not go well, I want to know how that went and what you learned. You know,
Mhm.
that's so if so sometimes I will give those worksheets that have them look at the context and identify accelerators and brakes.
Yeah, I think there's actually a questionnaire where s- they'll get a rating of this is how sensitive my accelerator is, this is how like sensitive my brake is. And so, what a great piece of psychoeducation. And then, they can talk about it together. And as you said, they might, erupt. This conversation might not happen. Oh, okay, information. It might erupt into a cycle. Okay, information. Let's see what happened there. And then depending on the couple, like you said, we can do everything from like have him do an exercise from the workbook or from the book and kind of like give them a small thing, or we might say, sometimes we have those couples that just run with information. So we might give them the whole book and say,
Yeah.
you're going to find this so helpful. So all those different kind of levels of psychoeducation, but at the very least, yeah, we would be informing them about the dual control model in the session. And
Mhm.
then as we start to work with it and work with the emotions around it, and like dripping in more and more information, because the more they have that, they'll hopefully, especially if they're really entrenched in that judgment, either of the partner or of themselves,
Mhm.
it'll help kind of loosen up that judgment and give them more context and more a different framework.
Different,
And
yeah,
I'm sorry.
different meaning, different way to kind
Yeah.
of explain what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So is there, what else have we missed here when it comes to the dual control model?
I think that's what we'd planned to talk about for this episode. So next we're going to talk about responsive and spontaneous desire. I think that's kind of our next topic, which is another important topic that was came for me from the Emily Nagasaki books. That was kind of like, aha, that's so helpful, and is one of the things my clients find the most helpful. So we will talk about that in our next episode.
Yes, well, it was lovely talking with you. And as usual, leave us comments. We so appreciate your all's comments and questions. They really, if we
Mhm.
haven't done a show in a few weeks, we'll read a comment and then we'll email each other. Okay, let's go,